Alrighty. Hey, Tim. Very good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Kumar?
Hey, doing good. Good. Well, people, my name is Kumar Pushpak, and I head the team here at Ijona Services. And along with me, I'm having Tim Jerome, straight from the city, New Mexico City in US. And what we gonna today discuss is related to COVID. I'm sure you'd be interested to know some details. Um, well, recently there was an article which was published by Scientific American uh, uh, publisher. Now, they say that New Mexico has controlled the spread of COVID-19. New Mexico has controlled it. Which is a great news, a wonderful that sounds. What we're gonna figure out is few details on that. Tim is pretty much based out in New Mexico out there, and he should be the best to comment and let us know how this happened or how this is happening. Well, Tim, uh, before that, if before we start in this questions, if you could help our viewers understand uh, what is this all article about?
So, I want to preface this with this is not a solution. We're not solving COVID. We're struggling like the rest of the world.
Hmm?
And it's just like everybody else. It's not a fix. What it is a check that says we can actually slow the spread. You have to realize you've heard about New York City and how bad it is, right?
Yes, yes,
Do you know
everyday
the
news.
do you know the percentage of people in New York City who have gotten COVID?
Uh-huh.
How what is it? What's the size?
Oh, there had been lakhs of people, a million.
22%. And
Oh,
that's
okay.
New York City. They still they still have what is that? 88% of the city that has yet to get COVID.
Okay.
We have 90% of the United States who yet to have COVID. We haven't even started this yet. Okay? This is what we're talking about, guys. Okay? We're hitting the million mark in the
Okay,
planet.
let me repeat this once again. So 22% of the total population in New York City has been affected with COVID. There
That
is
was
still
last
78,
yeah, there's
uh-huh,
still yeah, yeah.
78% is still left. All right.
Okay. Is that a bit of a shock to you?
This is indeed.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, now I want to ask you, Kumar, can you
mhm.
tell the audience what your company and what your business does? It's important to our conversation.
Oh, absolutely. So we are an IT services company primarily, along with IT services. Along, we also provide trainings, technical trainings out there. Offset recently, we have also started taking a lot of interest in e-commerce development, and that's how things are moving, and a lot of businesses are going live. There are still a lot of businesses who are yet to go live, but yeah, everybody is excited towards going digitization of their business portfolio.
Okay, so if you were to get a handle
Mhm.
on the pandemic and try to put a decision support system together, how
Mhm.
would you do that as a company?
Right. So there are few things that we can actually look into that majority. Your social norms, which is in place, which has to be there. Along with it, digitization, as I mentioned, uh, is something which not allow people to come in contact as much as possible. We can help businesses. That's how to run their businesses as of. Anything that can actually be done remotely and precisely with minimal risk is something that me and my company is interested to work upon.
So, let me tell you my background, and then we'll get into the Scientific American article. Okay, I'm an advisor, right? And I'm a program project manager, but I've been working as a consultant since back in 2004, 2005. I was working with Fortune 50s and Fortune 100s, and then I went internal to my corporation. They let me go in 2012, and I switched over to a little bit of telecommunications and helping the transition in the United States to LTE, to 4G LTE. If you remember that, between
Hmm.
2009 to 2012, I was working with the cell towers around the United States. That
Hmm.
was part of what my company was doing. And what I'm doing right now is I'm advising businesses and people in moving to another level of performance. Executives, like I mentor 3 or 5 people right now for executive roles and helping executives. I'm also working with corporations, and one corporation I'm working with is exploring how to build a community that can be self sustaining and resilient. And this is really fascinating. And what we're looking at is how can we actually create a community that can talk to nature, talk to the community itself, and talk to each other so that no matter what climate changes, no matter what weather changes, no matter whether we have a pandemic, we have the earliest data as possible in the
Hmm.
easiest way to absorb and analyze in a way that we can actually respond and perhaps even restructure a small community on the spot easily so that you can actually create an inherent resilience, make sure that the community doesn't fall apart. And this is just really in early stages, but the research is fascinating. Now, let's get back to this article, okay? first
Hmm.
of all first of all this article at a high level says there are actions that people as well as communities can do together to actually influence the spread. Government has a role,
Hmm.
community services have a role, businesses have a role, and people have a role. And what New Mexico found out was they work together, they're a whole bunch more successful. Now, data and its analysis can be used to make better decisions. That's the big part of this article. Centralization and standardization of the analysis of data and decision support systems. That is the call to action right there. Make it clear, make it transparent, make it so everybody from the governor down to the janitor knows what's going on. So everybody knows what they're working on, why they're doing what they're doing, and they can actually support this as well as put up with being locked in a house for 5 or 6 months. And when the call to action says the meters have gone up a little bit, we all say, great, we'll hunker down in the home. We have about 5 weeks of food. We'll be fine. Now, New Mexico is not the rest of the nation. Okay, we come from 600 years of Spain coming up from South and Central America into Santa Fe. I'm in Albuquerque, about 60 miles away from this. And so we have an ingrown farm mindset, community mindset. When a barn burns down, everybody comes around and helps. When the field doesn't work well, we all pitch in and we all get a little hungry so that everybody does not starve. So it's sort of built into the culture as well. And this actually resonates through the article too. But that's the whole picture of the article. You have to do it not as a bunch of individuals and an ivory castle that says we know what's going on. That's not going to work.
Mhm.
How's that for a picture?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And when I read that article, I also saw. I actually noticed 11th or 13th March was the first time when somebody actually tested positive in your city,
Yeah,
right?
we don't have a lot of transportation in and out of New Mexico. It is not a destination. We're
Yeah.
we're again, what are we? 1.4 to 18.8 million people in the whole state, and this is the fourth largest state in the United States, in the nation. So we're basically a desert, and we're farming communities. Now, I live in a valley that's about 23 miles in length. Okay, and it takes 20 minutes for me to get anywhere in the city.
Hmm.
We have about 850,000 people in our area and the outlying. And so the rest of the people are just scattered in small villages and towns. And some of them are living the way they did 200 years ago. Some of them are living the way they did 50 years ago. But communications has been important. We have had a lot of fuel and oil money to invest in education. And not only that, but we have the national labs here. After World War II, we the nuclear research left the University of Chicago, and they broke it up into three branches. And they have the real big, heavy, deep thinkers up in Los Alamos, about 1.5 miles away, 1.5 hours away from me by car. And then 4 miles away, they have the test site, it's called White Sands Missile Range, and that's down south. Now, and then in Albuquerque itself, we have such a dense population of PhD, it's silly. And we have a lot of project and program managers. We have a lot of decision makers. We have a lot of analysis supported by the Department of Energy. Now, these guys don't work on bombs anymore. They,
Hmm.
again, Department of Energy, they do work on research on missiles and that kind of thing, but they're working also on how do I actually convert this energy that can be released to devastate cities to actually, have it something that we can harness safely and use it moving forward. And we have research in cell technology and that kind of thing. So when they see a problem, these guys rub their hand and say, "Oh, goody!" So we have a bunch of farmers. We have a pretty good education infrastructure, and we
Hmm.
have bunch of really smart people who are interested in making the world better. So when I say you get together, that's the type of people that we have getting together, and that's the big thing. One of the other things that was interesting in that article is that our governor, Ms. Grisham,
Yeah,
she
I was. Yeah, absolutely.
you
I
want
was
to talk
about
about
to.
her, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I was about to ask you this. On a step-on-step process, ever since the 11th of March, when the first uh, uh, COVID uh, tested positive, the person tested positive, what were the steps by the governor Michelle uh, in terms of controlling this? Because I was just trying to compare this with the New Zealand Prime Minister's rule, the way she did. It was a lot of similarities that I could actually figure it out. But yeah.
So yeah, it was lockstep. Not everybody likes our governor, and that's great. That's what democracy is all about, and they have, just like the rest of the nation right now, they have
Mhm.
strong feelings. However, she comes from a background, and she comes back out of the part branches of the government that have been studying, have been working with this. And we do have outbreaks of disease. We're still working with bubonic plague here. We have
Right.
outbreaks of the plague, everyone, at least one a year. It is something we live with, and so New Mexico knows how to deal with disease and these kind of things. And we have like what 17 communities, pueblos of American Indians here who have been here for what 10, 15,000 years, and so they're doing their own thing on their national land. And so we had to figure out how to work with them too. And so, but the thing is, she said something. She said, we have to do this. We turn on a dime.
Hmm.
Everybody listened to what she said, and everybody did it. Not everybody liked it, but we all did it. And that was the big thing. It was fascinating to watch. It was a great exercise in saying, I don't like you as a person, but I know this is important. So let's work together. It's sort of like, it's sort of like a family. You may or may not like your uncle or your cousins, but boy, they're going to be there and you're going to be there for
Hmm.
them. And so the actual steps were number one, get the decision support system in place. Number two, get the critical resources in place. And that means, again, that the equipment the hospitals needed, make sure that there was one source and there was one source of information where things were. Make sure that there was one decision maker. And this was not just inside the hospitals. This is working with the labs, the federal government, locally, not nationally. This is working with businesses. There's a company called Tricor who actually does testing and evaluation, and they stepped up. And then the hospitals themselves. And they worked as a community to figure out how they were going to do this. And it was very interesting. From a public statement, the first thing they attacked were the softest part of the communities, which means the aged, the infirm, the long-term care facilities, and these areas. And immediately they came in and strengthened those.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
But this was not a complete lockdown, right? It was not
well,
a
oh,
complete shutdown.
once actually in March, it was like, no, guys, school's out. This is the end. We're going to try to figure out in the next, they said it, in the next 2 to 4 weeks, we're going to figure out how education works. We can't tell you now, but your kids are going to be home. Take it as a long school spring break, and we'll figure it out. And the university was doing the same thing. UNM, New Mexico State, and Eastern New Mexico University, and they all said, we're just cutting things and locking it down. It was like flipping a switch to the state immediately after that, because we didn't know how bad COVID was yet. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know. We knew it was spreading through the air, but we didn't know anything else. We at that point, nobody knew what mask was better than another, and we weren't starting to share this information yet. And so what they did was say, nope, you're going to figure this out. You're going to lock down, and you're going to hunker in your houses for a couple weeks, and we'll figure stuff out, and we'll get back with you. And they did that. And they said, okay, here's how we're going to handle getting you guys food. Here's how we're going to handle the long-term care facilities. Here's how we're going to handle the hospitals. Here's how we're going to handle testing. And this was interesting. From the first statement, testing was not just for people who were sick. They were testing for both symptomatic and asymptotic. If you think you were exposed, we don't care if you're sick or not. We're going to test you because we need to understand this thing. And so they were able to actually gather data and not just figure out, are you sick or not, but they were able to actually be a little strategic and forecast with their data. The article talks about that. And I found that fascinating too as I was watching the news.
Hmm. Also, the healthcare system, Tim. I was reading a bit about it, so I understand New Mexico has a centralized healthcare system. How different this is from your neighbors?
So, yes, we are lucky in the fact that we have Albuquerque as the hub of commerce for the whole state. So we centralize it. And again, it takes about 7 hours to drive from the northern border. Actually, it takes longer than that. It takes quite a while to drive from the northern border to the southern border. But we have a very centralized healthcare, and that's for state funded as well as federal funded healthcare as well. And so we can actually make decisions as a single business, if you want to say that. Now that's healthcare, but they were able to do that with their testing as well, and that was the beautiful thing.
Hmm.
It's centralized. Texas is distributed, so you have decisions here, decisions here, decisions here. Arizona, they had decisions here, decisions here, decisions here, and they weren't working in lockstep as a unit. And that's one of the major message that they're talking about. Conscious, concerted effort from, like I said, from the governor down to the janitor. Everybody working together.
Hmm. Also, the testing which were carried out, with the testing lab was pretty much inside the city. I mean, where were you dependent on the other states for the results?
About 20% of the test, even at the very beginning when we needed it,
Hmm.
the 20% of the testing went outside the state. 80% of it we were able to do here. And like I said, we couldn't have done that without a community effort of overflow from press, Batarian, the healthcare to Tricor, Los Alamos. They were pitching in for their research and analysis, and they were doing a lot of the forecasting models for the state and the governor's people for decision making. It was fascinating to watch. And again, you have the testing centralized, you have the sharing of resources centralized, you have the management of the people as well as the information centralized, so you're able to make better, quicker decisions and act as a whole unit. And again, I think this is what the major message of the article was.
Hmm. How's the current situation, Tim? Is the businesses open, schools open?
Schools are really wacky. They're sort of in a partial open phase. Like the students will go sometimes, and then they stay home while the other students were home go in, and there we have the distancing, and we have the masks, and we have an intense effort for daily cleanup in the schools. And we're doing the same thing with businesses too. They're they're trying to open up restaurants and other places where people can socially interact, but they're careful. And we all know that if the numbers go in the bad way, things are going to turn around in 24 hours. And the problem is, you see this in the U.S. news all the time. You see a huge event, and then 2 weeks later in the state of that event, you see a huge surge in people becoming infected, and it's obvious. So right now, over the weekend and the end of last week, Florida announced that they're opening up, and they had pictures of people all over Florida going to the bars. And right now, with us, we're allowing some indoor restaurant participation, but for the most part, we're having small community gatherings within the logic that they're giving. They're very careful with controlling this. Yeah, it's again.
How does this?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just asking, since now this is the current situation, how the business owner are reacting? What's their reaction?
They're not happy.
Are they
It's a
comfortable?
compromise. It's a concession and a compromise. And you talk to the owners, and they say, "We don't know if we're going to be in business next year." But if the people who are coming to our restaurants die, we're not going to be in
Mhm.
business either. And they're like farmers. They're very pragmatic about this. Again, this was like no holds barred. Everybody has to realize the reality of the situation, and there's no painting this ugly picture pretty. You can't put pink flowers on a picture of "this is serious" and dance around it and say everything's fine. That doesn't work. That's never worked in New Mexico.
Right.
Again, it's supported. I don't know if it can be replicated. The culture of New Mexico is such that we've been in a subsistence model for so long that we're ready for survival. We're not ready to sit back and have a party every night. We're ready for survival. We have dried beans and rice in our pantries for 2 or 3 months if we have to, and that's the mindset. You know, what's tomorrow going to bring? I don't know.
Right. No, you picked up a term, data. It's vital, by the way. Uh, Now, you need to have data to model certain things, right? One specific issue which the entire globe has faced, and most of the government were not able to understand the way the virus is reacting or acting. You see, when I read that article, I did find that the modeling of the COVID virus was done in a proper way with the help of some research agencies. Can you put some details on it?
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about. We have these wonderful national labs here in New Mexico,
Hmm.
but then again, every state has its universities,
Hmm.
and I wonder what they're doing with their data science and data science research, because they could probably replicate this part of it pretty easily. They like I said, these scientists rubbed their hands with glee, and they got to work on figuring out, not only how how does the data represent this spread, and we're tracking and we're gathering information. We're actually backtracking these events where we think these people got it, and then we can actually follow that through. About 2 or 3 of my friends who are out of work are doing part-time work in this data tracking, and
Hmm.
we're actually able to say, okay, here's the initial point where this breakout occurred, and here's what we can call a super spreader, and we see how this is happening. And so the national labs, as well as the state government and other entities, are able to say, you know what, here's our sore spot. Our sore spots are restaurants. Okay, restaurants, be real about this. Do you want to be the source of killing a bunch of people? And so they're able to actually focus in on very specific reasons for how and why the virus is spreading. Now, this is important not just for New Mexico, but everything, because there is going to be research coming out that says there are mutations to this, and some of the mutations are being caused because it's harder for the virus to spread. And when the virus is given an obstacle, it's going to work until it overcomes the obstacle. So you have to have robust modeling, not just modeling, but modeling that can capture these changes, so we can actually say, is this a super spreader, or is this a new type of virus? And only if you have the centralization of the healthcare function, of the data, and the data analysis function, and the decision support function working together as a single whole unit, can you start making sense of these things. And we're lucky that we actually are able to do that.
Wonderful. So basically, your labs, your governor, and you yourself, the people of the city, the state, has actually made this possible.
Yes, and like I said, it's not it's not a solution. It's not a solution, but it's a patch. And we have to realize that this is the new reality. This may be just the way things are moving forward. If we can do this, number one, we can hold out long enough so that a great majority of us don't go through the disease. And hopefully we can get within 2021 sometime, we can get a vaccine against this. Maybe, maybe not. But in the meantime, we have just proven to ourselves that as
Mhm.
a community and a state, we can do that, which is even more important. Proving to yourself that you can do this is where confidence comes from. And if we can actually show this more and more and more times, not only New Mexico can grow its confidence, and we're not feeling like we're better than anybody else. By no means are we. What we're feeling is we're all right for today. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So
Mhm.
this is actually something that we can say, okay, we're not ready for the next thing, but we will handle it if something's there, and we'll handle it in a similar manner. And that's what we're living under right now. We have a little bit more confidence towards an unknown future. And again, it's a call to action for people as individuals. It's a call to action for businesses, for universities. It's a call to action for the government and government decision makers. To this is one way we did it right. And if you want to actually talk to us, please do. Please, this is the way we figured it out, and we're not hoarding it. We're not. Please talk to us.
No, absolutely. Let's since you invited people to talk, let's talk for the people who are individuals like you and me. At the government level, yeah, governor is doing her bit, but as an individual, what is your suggestion? What is our takeaway from this exercise?
So, real quickly, my advice has not changed. Number one, educate yourself. Don't be afraid. Don't keep these things hidden. Understand what's going on, and be aware. And if you are scared of the reality, talk and share and join the community discussion and say this is scary, and then actually other people in the community say, well, we're looking over here, and there are solutions that work. And as you become aware and you realize that there are these point solutions that are working, you're not going to be so scared. And the burden of fear and stress shared is a lot less than the burden of keeping it to yourself and being alone. And so, we're back to what we were talking about with our friend 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's being part of the communication interchange. Volunteer. If you have time, if you don't have work, volunteer. Find something that you're compelled to do. One of my friends in a local project management chapter here actually created a small connection between sources of safety equipment and where the safety equipment needed to be. And so they actually were able to create a very quick way of moving safety equipment around the city and around the community where it was needed immediately, like ventilators and masks and other equipment the hospitals need. And so not only were they able to handle the monthly storms of inventory, they were able to handle the emergency needs. Stepping up, and if there is a problem to be solved, nobody else there, congratulations, you're the leader. Don't be afraid of these things. Sure, you're going to make a few mistakes, but again, reaching out and touching people, 6 feet away, but interacting and managing and being part of the solution will actually manage this fear and stress. And you'll be proud of what you did at the end of each week, even though you're exhausted. From an individual standpoint, educate, educate, educate. Prepare yourself for the unknown. Prepare yourself for, I don't know what next week's going to look like, but we'll figure it out when we get there. It's a different mindset. The hardest thing I've found as a teacher of project management is helping people change the way they solve problems and they look at problems. This is a huge thing. And this is what I've been working on my last decade and a half. And if there is a way that if there was a gift I could give anybody, is to actually give them a way to learn a different way of problem solving. The way people are solving individuals is not wrong. But if you had more than one way to solve problems, it makes you stronger, it makes the people around you stronger, and it makes the community stronger. This is the key. Again, educate, learn how to learn better, find out what you're driven by, because you're going to be working hard, you're going to be working long, and connect to the people like you so you can be part of the solution. That at the end of the day, you feel like you're really good. The worst thing, the death of a society is something called complacency. And if we are stuck on our couches eating snacks and just watching distracting TV, I hate to say it, it does keep our minds off our problems, but it doesn't solve them. And if you can be part of the solution, we learned this in World War II in the United States. We learned this in World War I in the United States. We knew this. Being part of the solution is important for a person. That gives you fulfillment and satisfaction. Please step up, do it, participate, find ways. Even if it's just, going down to the sidewalk and finding people who need help. Do something and educate yourself. These we're at a really unique part of our society, and we've known it for about 4 or 5 decades. This is the age where we're going to come together, or we're going to keep on stumbling.
Right. I mean, it's up to the people out there. But do you see any? I'm talking with respect to the entire United States out there. Which are the other states, Tim, in your knowledge or in your sense, which is doing comparatively better or doing good?
I would have said the middle U.S. About a week and a half ago, but I mean a month and a half
Okay.
ago. But the virus just hadn't gone out there. I think New York had a good idea. Cuomo, again, the politics and the individual may not be to my liking, but I like the fact that they were out there and they were actually active. They were activists. That was nice, and also a concerted effort. But the when you have a city like Bangalore or Delhi or New York City, you have problems that New Mexico as an entire state can't even wrap their heads around. And it would take, again, it would take a major corporation to handle the data analysis and infrastructure changes that need to be made. I think they did it well. I
Hmm.
think that I I don't know how the decisions are being made. I'm able to read people to a certain extent, but a lot of this stuff, the leadership in our nation is holding their cards close to their chest, and so they're not exposing how they're doing things. And this is what was really unique about this article. Even Oregon and Washington, who I think handled things as well as they could with their early breakouts. And California did great too. And the California has the same problem as New York. It's just like so many people in a small place that it takes a major corporation to understand the whole um, infrastructure of managing one disease. So I think they're doing all right for what it is, but at the same time, how are they making decisions? I don't know. How are they acting on those decisions? And is everybody in line? Those are those three things in the article, and I'm going to be watching this over the next 6 months and seeing what it's like. There's a couple other things that I've been observing. I've been studying the fall of civilizations. Complex society. Why does society fall apart? And two of the last things to crumble in a society that say it's going to go to its knees are transportation and commerce and communications. And thankfully, we still have both of those that are pretty stable. There are there's problems with transportation, but it's still strong. If we can't go to the store, we still have Amazon, and we have a lot of other services that can bring food to our doors. So we're all right. Each state is its own entity, though, and we're not really gathering together. What I really liked was an announcement about a week and a half ago. There were about 120 corporations that got together and signed a declaration and said, we are no longer going to follow what we've been doing since the 1980s. We're going to approach business from a different standpoint. This cannot go on. And whenever I see things like this, I'm fascinated and not just entertained, but I'm really supportive of that. When they recognize and are honest about lack of health of a system or a way of doing business, I'm saying, great, we can always make it better. So from a state standpoint, um, it's going to be hit or miss, and I don't know if what we're doing can be replicated. I know that's long-winded, but
Mhm.
that's my opinion.
In the report 10, there is one community that is Native American. I know it's a small population compared to the rest out there. However, in the report, it says that that community has been affected mostly. Uh, can you point out the reasons why this
These
community has been pointed out?
So we have about 17 pueblos, which are different communities. They're actually different nations. They
Mhm.
work together, and you may have more than one pueblo, which is basically a village. Um, uh, you may have more than one village as a community or nation too. So we have three or four different types of American Indians here, and they're isolated, and they speak a different language, and their children may or may not go to the schools in Albuquerque, and they may choose to go to the schools in their communities, and they protect their traditions and their lands, and they're very proud of their history, and so they've been a bit isolationist. And whenever you have isolationists, you have a risk that they're not going to follow the norms of everybody else. And number two, they're going to have a lack of sharing of information that the greater body has. And so when you have a disease hit them, they're not as quick to respond. And so they they were devastated early on, and but luckily, one of the communities is near a town called Gallup, New Mexico, which is a couple
Mhm.
hours between here and Arizona, and they on a dime actually locked down that whole city. And it wasn't just a lockdown like you and I've gone through. It's like nobody's on the streets. No, you're not going to be on the streets or you're in jail. We're going to have curfews. We're going to make sure that everybody has something to eat. It was not like a military invasion, but it was that strong. We're gonna take over. We're gonna figure this out, and so they curtailed it very quickly. That was a big one. Farmington had a small bit of a problem. Grants, which is down south and a little bit west of Albuquerque, um, also had a bit of an issue because there's a mayor that, like many places in the United States, the mayor said, I'm going to do things my way. Great, more power to you. We're going to fine you and you have to pay money because you're not doing this. There are laws in place now that say if you're a mayor and you don't follow this, you get busted. And so that drama is still playing out. The lucky thing is if you align on the side of data and analysis and a centralized decision making, the drama goes away. The politics goes away, the drama goes away, and it gets very clean and efficient. And if that is something I could give both governments and business, that's one of the things I give away. Get rid of the politics. This is not a political thing. Get
Oh,
rid of
wonderful. Yeah, yeah. There has to be some challenges. I'm sure people is following all the norms and the guidelines which has been actually put it in front. Yeah, I mean it's great, but along with this, the entire city out there. Are you now comfortable? Let me talk about Tim Jerome. How are you feeling uh,
I
as of today?
I have my disinfectant in my car. I wash my hands. I go to the store. I no longer stand in lines. I know exactly when to go to the store so I don't have to stand in lines. And if I stand in line, I stand in line. And I know nobody has to tell me now. I know if I want to use my own bags, I can. I just leave them in the shopping cart, and they put the food in my shopping cart, and I put my food in my bags. And this is just the new normal. Okay. This is just the way things are. And I know it's not going to be the same next week. Now, that's me. That's the rest of everybody else, too. We're going to grumble. We're not happy. But, you know, it's just the way it is. I'm not going to restaurants with my wife. My wife actually is immune compromised, and we've been living like this for 7 years anyway. Um, so we're not going to go to the restaurants. What I do is I call ahead to the restaurant, and
Mhm.
I say, can you have this food ready? I'll be there in 20 minutes. And they say, sure. I pull up to the parking lot. I give them another call. I give them the credit card. They give me the food. Bing, bang, boom, and I go
Back
home.
home.
So it's again it's that. But we have little celebrations, and we do it in a way that we can. My son and my daughter-in-law got married, and we had we had a group of people over here on one side of the room, and we had a group of people on here on the side of the room. When we got together, we stayed 6 feet apart from each other, and we celebrated. When we we're building a small space in the backyard. I'm redoing the backyard, but we're building a place where I can do composting, which is better. So a lot of hobbies. We get frustrated because there are times when yeast isn't in the stores, and right now there are other things. And but again, this is new, but maybe it is normal. It's the way my parents lived.
No, absolutely. It's a collective responsibility, Tim. That's even I feel. Here in India, I live in Bangalore, which happens to be the most crowded and intensely populated city. Well, for the last 3.5 months, it was complete lockdown. Then the business started moving in. There were some shops, some businesses which were opening up. What I see and is not very appealing is people tend to started taking it little lightly, and that's where you might have seen the news related to India. We are now uh, just behind you. We are the second most affected country in the world after us. What needs to be noted is basically us started the curve went in on a high rise starting March, I think April. India, the curve started, I think, somewhere in the middle of June or start of June. But in the last 4 months, the way it has hit, we just came second, just after US, and which is very alarming. And I'm sure the way things are moving in, the way the people have started taking it light. I see people when I step down. I see people around. Most of the people do wear masks, but yeah, I don't know. I don't see that urgency or emergency, uh, which should be seen on the face. So it's alarming. But what is good is city states like New Mexico, Albuquerque in the U.S., country like New Zealand. I mean, there are people who has controlled it. Is not find the solution, I understand, but has controlled in its own manner, which sounds really positive. It gives me a lot of hope, and I'm sure people who are listening us would be getting a lot of hope. So, which is a great sign. But before on this, before we sign off, Tim, do you have a last comment to make? And would you like you to give the final advice to the people out there? What are the do's and don'ts, and how they can actually take things control?
This is not the only solution. Um, there's going to come out a lot of solutions, and if you think that you don't have an opportunity to find that solution, you're wrong. There's not just one light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
Second of all, I'm going to be a little long-winded here. Um, this isn't easy, and we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to own up to those mistakes and fix them as we go along. And this isn't just for COVID, but this is for government, this is for business, this is for people in our individual lives. And we have to realize, number one, it's more important to stick together than to be perfect. We have to reprioritize that. And we need to communicate. We need to share our wins, not just point out that other people are failing and other people have mistakes. We need to share our wins. And the most important thing is having a flexible playbook. It's not having a plan that we never change. It's having a way of looking at things that says, well, this is not working. Let's continue to work together and let's make these changes and see how those changes become more successful, because that's how New Mexico does it. And that's how we
Mhm.
did get to where we are now. We made mistakes all along the way, and we just made tweaks and changes, and we continued to be persistent in working together.
Great. Yeah, I mean, with this note, people, once again, it's a collective. It's a collective. Again, it's a collective effort which can only help government to control this. Government makes policies. We're the people who has to follow those policies. So we have to take it seriously, right? If we don't follow those policies, means nothing.
And the thing is, the strength of an individual. Remember, we're still a democracy. The strength of an individual may not be big, but a strength of individuals will change the will be able to influence the policy, which is really awesome. We forget this. We become complacent. And only when we're under duress do we actually remember this. That's what we're founded on here in the United States, and that's what everybody respected us with. It's the ability to change policy without revolution, without riot, and we can do it, and we can still do this. It may only be observed in spurts from time to time, but this is something that we've proven to ourselves that we can actually hold on to. The people have a voice, and it doesn't have to be a violent one.
No, I absolutely agree on this. Uh, with this, it's absolute pleasure to talk to you, Tim, especially for this edition. I can see a smile on your face, which is
Oh yeah,
very pleasant. And yeah, you have all the reasons to smile. Good job done, New Mexico. Uh, great,
well,
and
yeah. Talk to us in a couple months, and we'll talk about it. But thank you, and again, Kumar, let's continue this show. There are many other things we can talk about, but just instilling hope and keeping the conversation going. If we can do that, that's the best thing we can do.
absolutely, we'll come live next week, same time, same day.
Thanks again, Kumar.
Till then, take care and stay safe and follow the procedures and take necessary steps to avoid getting affected from COVID 19. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for listening and take care. Good
Goodbye.
day, all of you. Thank you, Tim.